Here, and I have an excellent author for you guys. I've been on several panels with him, so we've kind of got to hang out a few times. I'm going to have Adam here. Oh, fingers this way. Oh, you can even see him. No, other way. Okay, we're gonna there.
This way.
Yes, I'm gonna have Adam tell us about his book Into the Black, which I have been reading, and let me tell you guys, the characters in this book are amazing and to die for. So, Adam, go ahead and tell us about Into the Black and give us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, we'll start with me. So, like Maddie said, Adam Gaffen. I'm a science fiction author. I write in what I call the Cassidyverse. It's based on my series, The Cassidy Chronicles. There are 5 novels in that series, plus a prequel that was actually written by one of the main characters. And this, Into the Black, is set in that universe. I've heard people call it a collection. I've heard them call it an anthology. It's 11 stories, but they're all set in the same universe. And they kind of fill in some of the gaps. They fill in some of the gaps of the stuff that, no matter how big a novel is, unless you're talking like War and Peace, you can't put everything in. And if you put everything in, nobody's going to want to read it. So, but they're great stories. As Maddie is nodding along, she's like, "Oh yeah,
yes,
uh-huh.
Yes."
So I couldn't leave them out. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll when I have enough of them, I will put them into a collection and put it out there, and that's what it is.
I like it. Collection fits better than anthology, honestly. I think.
And these stories, I mean, yes, they're all science fiction, but you've got your usual, you've got your time travel, you've got your aliens, you have a mutiny on a starship, but then you have, there's a teen rom-com in there. There is a marriage proposal, a little flash fiction piece in there. There's a murder mystery in there. So, it's one of the things I love about writing sci-fi is you can write any genre you want, given the right setting, given the right characters. So I got to explore a little bit with this one.
I like it. And I really like Kendra's character, but I have to ask what kind of mindset do you go into when creating her and letting her take over and kind of write her story?
Okay, so Kendra's character has really evolved. She has turned into the main character. I mean, she's the one standing behind me here. That's actually from the cover art for one of her stories in the collection, Because I Can. Anyways, so she's turned into the main character, and she's a very assertive character. She is the big dreamer behind everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's also very determined to go and do it and go and get it, and nothing is going to get in her way. And when it comes down to telling her stories, she's best suited for doing that. I mean, there are two very Kendra-centric stories in the collection. Recruiting Kendra and Because I Can. And Recruiting Kendra is written from her perspective. It's first person. And it feels like you're there. I mean, it really captures her voice. Because I Can, I mean, it's a fun little story, but it doesn't quite resonate the same way because it's about her. It's not by her. So, um, and I want the stories to be as vibrant and alive and pop off the page as I can possibly make them. And if that means that I turn my brain over to Kendra and let her write the story, okay.
I really think that's fascinating how you did that, because that was one thing coming into the book. I didn't expect that. And I was like, oh, wait, hold on. This is the main character speaking to me. I was like, she's kind of hijacking Adam's brain. It was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And I really enjoy it. Like, it's a different perspective. And I've read a lot of first person books, but this, I feel like I really connect with her in a way, the way you've written her. And it's mind blowing for me anyway.
She has her own introduction.
Mhm.
In the beginning, I write the author's introduction, and then she writes one which says, Adam does this to me all the time. He forgets that I'm here. I'm not letting him get away with it.
And that's one of the things I really liked, because it was hilarious. It was humorous too.
Oh yeah. No, she and I have an interesting relationship. I mean, she's out there in the world. If anybody follows my website, CassidyChronicles.com, she's the one who writes the introductions to the blog posts most of the time. She has her own Sunday. She puts up her own blog post, so she's telling whatever she wants to tell. I never know until it actually shows up. And she's the one who sends out the newsletter once a month. So
she's a busy woman.
It is. Plus, well, I mean, time is all wibbly wobbly and timey wimey. So she's off wherever she is right now and whenever she is right now. So, deadline, whatever. She doesn't care. She just has to get it back to me in the right, before I need it. She can take a week to write something.
Yes. And that is very much her personality from what I've seen so far. She's like, don't get in my way. I love it. So
no. The one thing you do not want to be between Kendra and whatever it is that she wants to do.
It makes sense. So with writing these stories, have you kind of stuck with a schedule, or is it just whenever it kind of hits you?
When I was writing the stories for the collection, that was the main focus. But there's no schedule as such.
Mm-hmm.
I had this done back in January, so scheduled it out to come out this month, just to give myself enough time to look it over and actually get the audio done. And it is. Yay! So I can actually have all the formats out for everybody, so people can get, whether they like an ebook or a paperback or a hardback or an audiobook, they can get whatever they want on Monday.
Sweet. So what was the hardest one to get done? Was it the audiobook, or would you say it was like the format for the ebook, paperback / hardback?
All right. So I'm a great believer in Robert Heinlein's definition of lazy. Lazy is finding the best, most efficient way to do something. So when I figured out what kind of formatting the Cassidy books was going to need, I created a template. So I just write into the template, and it's formatted the way so that they're all consistently formatted. So the formatting actually doesn't take all that much time. It's been getting the audiobook done, because that I can't do myself. Mm-hmm. I'm not a professional narrator. I can't do the accents. I can't do all the voices. So for that, it's like, okay, here you go. Find somebody. And then, it's coordinating and making, and getting things to sound right, and, life intervening on both sides. And I mean, she got it to me by the deadline, which meant I was able to submit it. And they were able to approve it. But yeah, it's always touch and go with Audible.
Yeah. So have you used the same person each time for the audiobooks?
No, actually, which I know is a bit surprising. But so for the main series, for those 5 books, I used 2 different narrators because the first one, she's a stage actress,
Hmm.
and at the time I was getting ready to get the 4th one recorded, and she had just taken a part, and and
Yeah.
so she wasn't going to have the time to do it on my schedule. It was going to be a long delay, so I went and found somebody else. um, and I mean, both of these narrators are wonderful. um, Jane's narration was more low key in a way, and
Hmm.
she and I think that comes from her being a stage actress, because Veronica, who did the second 2 books in the series, is a television and movie actress,
Oh.
and so she gets a lot more oomph into the voices,
Hmm.
a lot more emotion into the voices. Um, when it came time to record the memories of Ayana, it is written by Kendra. It's her memories of growing up with the woman she'd end up marrying. And uh, so I wanted a voice which was a little, I didn't want the broad voice. I wanted somebody who could kind of be a young Kendra looking back and get you that young sound without doing the other voices with particular accents, because it's Kendra reading her own story. It's
Hmm.
Kendra telling her own story. Kendra's not a voice actress. Well, all right, yes, she is, but we'll leave that aside. Um, so so that was one voice, and then Ruth Ann. Yeah, I threw this out for people to audition for,
Hmm.
fully expecting Veronica to grab it, but she's been, she got busy at the time that I was looking for this. Just kind of fell off the radar, and so Ruth Ann came in, and she does really well with the voices. She got to listen to the ones that had been done before,
Hmm.
so she has an idea, but she did a good job. Veronica's coming back. The next book, which is coming out, which we'll talk about another day, but
Yes.
Veronica's already recording.
Yay! That is exciting.
Yes.
So, when you began this series, did you have a set number of how many books you were going to write, or did that kind of develop as you went on with the writing?
When I started to write this, it was envisioned as 4 25,000 word, roughly, novellas, and they're all going to have separate titles. There was Run Like Hell, A Deadly Quest, A Desperate Gambit, and a 4th one whose title I have totally forgotten, because I started writing these 10 years ago.
Nice.
And the first 2 came out in 2013,
Hmm.
late 2012, early 2013. And then life intervened. I mean, it's a recurring theme, right? Life intervenes. So I didn't start writing again in the series until about 2020, early 2020. At which point I finally figured out how I was going to resolve everything, figured out who the actual bad guy was, because I didn't know. I've heard the term gardener, and that seems to work. I know what the seeds are. I know what I expect to get out of them. I don't know what they're going to look like as they grow.
Hmm.
So, um, so then I wrote, I wrote the last part of the story, which is a Desperate Gambit, and it turned out to be about 60,000 words, which is way too big to stand alone compared to 2 novellas.
Hmm.
It just wouldn't look right. So I took all 3 of them and smashed them into one, and that became the Cassidy Chronicles. And that was supposed to be it. That was supposed to be it. I had told the story. Nope. I started to write the next book. I thought I had a great premise. Um, a looming ecological crisis on Earth. Three-quarters of the population is going to be dead in 20 years. But the world wasn't coming together.
Mhm.
I had the characters, but the world they lived in it was flat. It was like, who cares?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, well, it's about the same time period. What if I just drop it? What if I pull Kendra and Ayana into this? So I did. And it took off from there.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. They took it over basically. And it went places I never expected it to go.
That's pretty cool. Because, I mean, they're heroes in a way in helping that story. So
Yes, they are. Very much.
that is cool. So with building their world and the various worlds that are tied into it, did you have to do much research into that?
There's always something. There's
Mhm.
always something I've got to find out. Oh, okay, what temperature? Again, this is a book that I'm writing now, but what temperature is cold enough to have like frozen carbon dioxide
Ooh.
and frozen, some other frozen gases, but not so cold that oxygen and nitrogen freeze. I had to find that temperature. Um, in Into the Black, in recruiting Kendra, I had to look at the city of New Orleans to figure out, okay, where is this plantation? How far away is it?
Mhm.
Um, what is the company she goes to work for is based in the old New Orleans Mint. What does that look like? What does it look like on the inside? You know,
That's really
all,
cool because that's
all
actually
these
that's where I'm
details.
at in the book right now, and I feel like you did a really good job on that. I've only been to New Orleans a few times, but I feel like you're actually there with it.
Well, I also trashed the city.
That's
Um,
true.
I had a I had a Category 6 hurricane run through it in '98 and basically destroy it. And Kendra's there 5 years later.
Yeah,
You know, yeah, about that. So
which is really cool how that you kind of had that set up the scene for everything. So it's like that could totally happen like
all right, so I'm going to
anytime.
turn this around and I'm going to ask you. So where are you in recruiting Kendra?
She has just started training. Um, and it's the naked running stuff. So which I cracked up really bad. I was like, I mean, if that's how you're comfortable sleeping, if you think the fire alarm's going off and you get up, like, who
Right.
cares about clothes? So
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, she just bounced out of bed. It's like, okay, I'm ready to go. Wait,
and
what?
the
No,
fact they're like, no, you can't put anything else on but your tennis shoes now. Like, you're gonna remember to start putting clothes on. I was just like, cracked me up because it's like, well, I guess that's your consequence for not like getting with the program there, right?
hmm
So, but I
Oh,
really like it so far.
you have some fun stuff still to go in that story.
Yes, I figured because her personality right now, I'm just like I'm in love with her. So it's fascinating and it's carrying me along. But I totally like started falling asleep. I was like, I've got to go to sleep or I'm gonna hate myself if I do not stop reading. So balancing that whole reading and writing and mom life, it gets crazy. So
hmm Oh, so you've read Magic for Skeptics.
yes, which is hilarious. So
Yes.
the whole Faye
Yeah.
thing and everything,
Yes.
it totally kind of threw me for a loop, and I was like, oh, tricksters, that would make sense.
Uh-huh. But again, it's Kendra and Ayana, and that little story, um, that little story shows up again a couple times. It gets referred to a couple times
Ooh.
um, further along, actually in an entirely separate book, because Lissa,
Hmm.
who people met for the first time in Memories of Ayana. Okay, so this is another. It's a childhood friend. Uh, And I got to talk about Memories of Ayana. It's written by Kendra, and their first Halloween in school. So you know that Kendra is obsessed with our television and our movies. You know, she's taken inspiration from it. Well, she's also particularly a Buffy fan.
Yeah.
So here's this little girl, little blonde girl, who decides she wants to be Buffy for Halloween. Okay, not bad, not bad. She can do this. So she and Ayana go, and Ayana goes as Willow, because Kendra basically says, "This is who you're going as." And so they go to school like that for a week. And after a week, she's kind of taught the rest of the school what Buffy is or was, because at that point it's 100 years old, right?
Yeah.
Or 80 years old. And so she's taught the rest of the school. So she's got vampires stalking her. And so she started walking around with stakes. Oh. And one thing leads to another. And at one point, she puts a stake through Lissa's arm.
Oh.
Totally justified, given the situation. So that's the first time you meet Lissa. Lissa shows up again in Magic for Skeptics. Lissa shows up again in actually it's in Into the Black. It's in the Martian Gambit.
Which I think you did mention that story, like a hint at that story in Magic for whatever you just said it was. I totally am bad at remembering the titles because I get lost in the story, but I remember that in there now because I'm like, wait, and then because I kind of was like, okay, that it didn't register, but if it comes back up later on, it's going to register. That's really cool. So
right, I'm trying to, with these stories, it's trying to, like I said, fill in some of the gaps, and these people weave in and out of her life and Diana's life, and so of course they're going to talk about things that they have in common and things that they've encountered, things that they, the common ground that they have.
Yeah. So another question on building Kendra's relationship with her wives, which are mentioned at the beginning of Into the Black. Where did you get the inspiration for that? Like, did you base that off of somebody's relationship, or how did you go about that?
I wouldn't say I based it off of any particular relationship. Robert Heinlein's my favorite author. So if you're familiar with him, and especially The Moon is a Harsh Mistress and some of his other later works, he has a very flexible view of what marriage can be. It's not even necessarily two people. But Kendra and Ayana have always been a pair. They were the ones getting married in the very first scene of the first book, when an assassin tries to kill Ayana, and everything goes to hell from there. So they've been together ever since. Now, the original marriage was a triad. It was Ayana, Kendra, and Derek. And then, right, it's Thrown for a Loop. That's actually the last story that I wrote for this collection. And it's the first one in there. So them being married to Minerva is new. It's new to them as well, because they've only been married to her for about, I want to say it's about 10 years when that story happens. But they've known Minerva for a couple hundred, because she used to be a computer. She was the alpha class artificial intelligence who ran Kendra's version of the Enterprise.
Okay.
The first starship.
Nice.
And so they've known her since 2118, when the starship launched. And so one of the later stories talks about how AIs are citizens in their Terran Federation,
Huh.
sentient beings. And
Yes.
Kendra decided in one of the other books, look, if you're a sentient being, we're not going to treat you like property. We're not going to treat you like chattel, like slaves. I don't care if you run on, I don't care if you run on hemoglobin or electrons. If you're sentient, you're a citizen.
Mhm.
Period. So that that got set up, and in another story which you haven't gotten to yet, they talk about AIs transitioning from computer to human, and that story is specifically about the first one. So by the time Minerva crosses from computer to human, it's been going on for a century.
Nice. I can't wait to get to that story now. I'm gonna have to do that this weekend. Finish it. Oh, so much reading to do. Okay. So with being a full-time, are you full-time author, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you keep your creative mindset? Do you have a self-care routine or anything you follow?
Um, I don't set myself goals. I don't set, you got to get this many words done or this many chapters done, or, so I don't put that additional pressure on myself.
Hmm.
Um, I have, like I said, I have another book which is already, you know, it's a couple months away from being officially launched.
Hmm.
Um, so I have time, and I know I can write. If I know I can write more stories. I stay involved with my fans, and I also have while I'm writing another Cassidy verse novel, I'm also working on a Kindle Vella project, which actually I'm writing under a pseudonym.
Nice.
So I can jump back and forth. And right now, honestly, I've been spending more time on the Vella project because it's a fun little universe that I've womped up over there. Totally not sci-fi.
Yeah.
So I can have that change of pace, but I can get up from my desk and go off and do something and not worry. Oh, you ought to be back there writing, because I haven't told myself I have to be writing. So it's okay that if I'm not.
Mhm.
You know,
That's
that's
nice.
something I know a lot of writers, a lot of other authors, they set themselves, okay, I've got to make this goal. I've got to make this many words. I've got to make, and I understand that to some degree. I
Mhm.
just, I reject that model of authoring. It's like, no, I'll write what I write. And if I write a couple thousand words today, great. And if I write a couple hundred words today, great. And if I spend all day making, making advertising videos on Canva, okay. It's what I need to do.
Yeah. It's still progress. You're still doing something for your writing. So, because marketing is very time consuming, as we all know, sadly.
Yes, it is.
So, ugh, I get lost more in marketing than I do in writing sometimes. Ugh. So, moving forward, what do you have planned?
So moving forward, there is another Cassidyverse novel coming out in June,
Okay.
and this is a spin-off series.
Ooh.
So Kendra's going to be in there. Ayana is in there very briefly, but I take a lot of the minor characters, well, a few of the minor characters that I've picked up along the way,
Mhm.
and I've stuffed them in a 4 kilometer long spaceship and said, "Okay, guys, see you in 3 years. Go." And so this is about what happens next. So that comes out in June. I have another. I'm working on the sequel to that book, and like I said, my Secret Squirrel Vella project.
Yes.
I do have two more after you finish recruiting Kendra, you will have an idea what the next Vela project will be for the Cassidyverse, because there are so many more stories that need to be told.
Mhm.
And there are going to be more memories of Ayana, again, written by Kendra, because the first little novel ends when they're just barely 7 years old. And they were best friends and did everything together until they were 17. So there's another 10 years of stories.
Sweet. I know I definitely want to read the rest of the series now that I've started this, because I'm very curious to learn more about the characters. So it's very fascinating. Oh
Yeah,
man.
let's see. You read Thrown for a Loop, read Magic for Skeptics, and you're into recruiting Kendra.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely like, I want to know more about them. So
Yeah,
you're sucking me in, Adam. You're sucking me in.
Well, Kendra is just a really vibrant character.
Yes.
And she absolutely does not take no for an answer. And she also doesn't know how to quit. She might know when to quit, she just doesn't know how.
Yeah. And I can see that about her character. So especially with things that are going on in the current spot I'm at. So awesome. Well, go ahead and tell our viewers where they can find your books and your work.
Sure. The first place to go look for my stuff is on Amazon. That's going to be the easiest place to find it. But I am wide on most of the books. So you can also go to the website, CassidyChronicles.com. Feel free to follow me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. You can even find me on LinkedIn. And what am I forgetting? I'm always forgetting something. There is always
Instagram? Do you have Instagram?
Yeah, I have Instagram. Oh, well, you can always find me on Go Indie Now, because I seem to show up on the channel.
I know, we both do. So quite a bit.
Pretty regular occurrences there.
Yes.
But yeah, find me anywhere. You can send me an email, adam@CassidyChronicles.com, or adamgaffenauthor@gmail.com. I answer both. And
awesome.
Yeah, come check it out. And if you go to the website, like I said, that's CassidyChronicles.com. Getting a theme here. If you go there, there are links to get free stories, free books, read chapters in the books, listen to some of the audio chapters. So
nice. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me on.